Hello, everyone. Kat King here, and I'm here with my partner, Melissa and Hernandez. We have a company called Curiosity Cubed, and we are starting our second show here live for Genius Zone Live. And today we're going to be continuing our discussion from Tuesday. We're going to continue with our topics on 5 topics for neurodivergent entrepreneurs. And so on Tuesday, what we started out with was a topic about RSD. And Melissa explained about it being a rejection sensitive dysphoria. And so we're going to go into it a little bit more as entrepreneurs and how it helps us to understand ourselves when we go into this because it's a killer for entrepreneurs. So we're going to discuss that today. And Melissa, would you like to take it off?
Yeah, hi. So I'm glad to be here again with you all. So yesterday we talked about rejection sensitive dysphoria, aka RSD, and how it was a perceived reaction to rejection, whether real, fake. And we kind of just touched on some points of how that manifests as we're feeling that rejection. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about how that is a hidden profit killer for ADHD women who are either in their regular standard job, 9 to 5, whether they're starting out on their entrepreneurial journey or they're already business owners. It really does affect women in the same way, just to different extents. So some of the key points we want to really think about and anchor in RSD is that it causes intense emotional responses, right? And again, perceived rejection or criticism, particularly in women. Like this is, everyone with ADHD, actually 99% of people with ADHD have RSD. Yesterday I had kind of mentioned that I don't have it to the extent as other people, but now that I've really sat with it, I'm trying to really internalize wait, there has been moments where I've really had it at a heightened sense. So I think for me, it's situational. So as far as women, one of the other things is saying no. Saying no is very difficult for people pleasing, yes, types of people. And so sometimes we perceive that as us rejecting other people. So we definitely want to not have that disproportional response to when we can't say yes. Another thing is kind of how fear of rejection deters taking action, how it stops us. It actually leaves us in that static mode of not being able to pivot, take a step, or we take a step, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, because now the rejection is real. So we want to kind of talk about that. We're going to spend some time kind of dealing with that.
And in that, there's some things that when we get rejected, one thing that I've been learning about is to take the data of what happened in the situation and understand that a lot of it has to do with other people and their dynamics of how they perceive things and how the perception is going forward. And when a neurodivergent person has this happen to them and they feel rejection, like sometimes I do, like sometimes Melissa does, that it's really a point of, okay, what was the situation? Why did it happen? How can I go forward with it? So it's not a situation where it cannot be solved or it cannot be handled, that there is a way to practice, okay, what was happening in that situation and how can we go forward with it? How can we build resilience? And resilience is one of the big things that Melissa and I work on with our clients to make sure that they have the tools ready so that when things like this happen, they know what to do. But a lot of it has to do with situations that we're not used to, that situations where people's reactions or people's actions are very different than what makes sense to our brains. So asking questions and finding out that's something that we can go through and practice it with other people, role play, things like that. Right, Melissa?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's start kind of talking about, we're going to do some Q&A, Kat and I, to kind of delve into it, to give some of those experiential situations where we both either experienced it or observed it in others.
Right. And a lot of times when you're in a situation, like I can only talk about myself right now, it's a sabotage. It's a way that you can sabotage a situation and go to the negative part of feeling neurodivergent. Now, I don't want any of y'all to think that we're only going to talk about the bad things about being neurodivergent, because today we're also going to talk about a very positive reason why neurodivergent women especially can start their own businesses and create the place where they feel safe and they can go forward. So, for example, Melissa and I work with many adult neurodivergent women, teachers, professionals in different places, and we know that there's sometimes that RSD sabotages their thoughts, and there's patterns to it. Do you notice some patterns with this situation, Melissa, that we can work on with our clients?
Yeah, I think um building resilience is really important, right? And not just building resilience for dealing with everyday things, but specifically in this context, we're talking about building resilience to rejection. So, how do you do that? You don't do it by shying away from those difficult situations. You actually, it's almost like exposure therapy, right? Where the more you try it, the less desensitized you become to it. And so, kind of allowing ourselves to engage in low stakes rejection, right? Where there's more than a 50% chance that we're going to be rejected, right? Or there's a possibility that we're going to be rejected. So we already prime our brains to go in already thinking that this may be a no. This may be one of those situations where I might get a rejection, and I'm going to use it, like Kat said, as data analysis. I might use it now as a momentum aspect of kind of building up to the next, right? So I think it's a lot of practice. I think it's a lot. And what we do see in patterns, and you were right, you hit it with self-sabotage. Self-sabotage, self-defeating behaviors, where we already feel like, okay, we failed before we've even tried, right? We've rejected ourselves. The notion of rejection is self-imposed oftentimes. Me too, I can only speak for me on what I've observed. And there's times where so many women won't even take that step and engage. And it's a self-imposed rejection, right? Based on past failures, past experiences. So it's really important for us to first kind of look inward and say, what are some self-defeating behaviors? Why am I saying no before someone else says no to me? Right. And so the patterns of self-defeating, sabotaging behaviors kind of will allow us to know what triggers our responses. And when we start kind of identifying the triggers or the areas that we feel like we are going to be rejected, so we don't try, that's when we get clarification and we're able to see clearer and say, okay, I'm going to do this. This is not a failure on my part. This is actually me being resilient. So, definitely looking at patterns of behavior is really important.
Yeah, and what I was thinking about also was when sometimes things happen in business or in meetings, for example, to differentiate between healthy business feedback and RSD, because sometimes when someone says no, it doesn't have anything to do with you. Sometimes it has to do with the situation. Sometimes it has to do with a backstory that you have no idea what's going on. You don't know that why they're saying no at this time has to do with profit and loss, has to do with laws, has to do with what the mission is for certain companies. So if you're in a business, for example, Wall Street or wherever you are, there's so many other dynamics happening at that time. So your ideas or your input might be rejected at that time, but it's not a necessary rejection of you. So that's where the data collection comes in. That's where trying to see the situation. But a lot of this is what we were talking about on Tuesday was going back to the taxing, okay, are we masking who we are or what's it? So all these questions as an ADHD person or neurodivergent in your different ways, you have to figure out, okay, am I seeing this? Am I perceiving this correctly? And what's going on here? So sometimes what helps is an internal checklist, right? Internal checklist of, okay, am I feeling this way because I didn't sleep well last night? And I know like you're going through so much now with your babies being sick. So are these things happening because you weren't able to go to sleep? You weren't able to focus. You weren't able to prepare. You weren't able to do stuff. And like for me, did something happen because like one of my goats got sick, or are we going to be able to afford taking to the goat to the vet, or my dog would, all these different things that happen. So we always have a backstory that we might not know about it, that we might need to think about. So there's always an internal checklist. Am I referring? Am I reacting so negatively? And what I talked about with our trip was there's so much input going on, so I didn't receive what was happening at that time like a normal person was, because in my head I'm going through all this whole list of issues that it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault. And that's where we needed to switch our internal voice. And then if we have any checklists. Now, do you have some checklists that we can talk about, Melissa?
I think when you talk about the internal checklist, it's really important because that's, I think, the first step to differentiating between healthy feedback, whether it's business, whether it's personal, and RSD, right? Actual perceived rejection.
Right.
I think if even preemptively we map out, Kat, as ADHD women, we tend to preemptively go over scenarios in our head and conversations, and we haven't even had them yet. And on the other side of that is post debrief, right? Conversations where I should have said this, why didn't I say that? And I think doing that ahead of time, especially going into situations where we may feel that we may be rejected or we're a little sensitive to the feedback we're receiving, that internal checklist would help us. Like, what are some possible outcomes? What are some things that may be said that are actual positive feedback and things that'll help me grow as an individual, as a person, as an employee? And what might I hear that might trigger me to react in that way that RSD manifests as rejection? Oh, I'm rejection. Because the minute we feel rejection, we shut down.
Yeah.
That conversation, you said it, that volume of the inner critic gets louder and louder, and it's drowning out the very important feedback that we almost always need. So I think having that checklist, as you mentioned, and just being able to analyze preemptively the dialogue that may occur or will probably occur in our heads as we engage in those situations where we might want that, take advantage of the feedback.
I was thinking about different things. For example, I keep on thinking about Alcoholics Anonymous because alcoholism was a big thing in my family. And I know that Alcoholics Anonymous has helped so many people with figuring out things that trigger them to go take a drink. And we've talked about how they also make sure that you have a buddy to call, 911 buddy to call. So I was thinking about this in the same way, that sometimes when we have these internal battles, internal triggers, like in Alcoholics Anonymous, it's who you stay around. If you're going to stay around bars, if you're going to stay around people who drink, you're not helping yourself. So are there some other things? I was thinking there's some things that help me. For example, we talked about it yesterday, grounding myself, going and breathing. Like if there's a situation that happens, to go outside for a little while and just get some sunshine in my face. So I was thinking about those kind of things that could help people that are finding themselves in an RSD situation. So I was thinking about if people out there that are listening right now live or that are in the replays, if they think about the last time that they were in a situation, whether in the business or their family, and they felt triggered, that they need to start taking the data with that. That's what, going back to the data and trying to figure out how you are reacting to something, because everyone reacts differently in every situation, right? So if we start thinking about something happens, and let's normalize the fact that it happens, for those of you that it does happen, not that it happens to everybody, but it does to me. And Melissa's finding out that it does to her as well. So let's talk about it. Go down in the comments and talk and let us know the last situation where you felt a rejection, that it was part of the sensitivity dysphoria, right, Melissa? It's called dysphoria.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
they can comment below, and then we can continue the dialogue with the people who are going to be part of our community, right?
Yes, and I think you mentioned normalizing, right? Normalizing our reactions because it's not our fault. That's just the way we're wired. But what we can control is how we perceive that rejection and how we can take steps to build rejection resilience. So as you all are commenting your experiences or something, think about how you could have responded in a different way now with hindsight.
Right. And while they're talking about that, what's one thing that they can do this week to start building uh, resilience from their feelings of rejection? What's one thing that could be helpful?
It might seem really simple, but I think you and I are big on writing things down, right? Oftentimes we want to process our words and our thoughts, and we do that internally, but our minds are going at so many different so many different paces that I think sometimes just writing down how you're feeling in the moment, even if it's one or two words, because it allows us to anchor ourselves for just a few seconds, opposed to going into that spiral, right? And I think that's just one way is just writing it down, right? You think it, you ink it, and then you're able to process it, and you go back and say, oh wait, I've already dealt with that. I'm able to identify the emotions that I'm feeling, and now that's going to help me better control my emotion or control my behavior, right? Our thoughts lead to action. So if we can start getting a grip on identifying how we're feeling in those moments, then we can better control those emotions and help regulate ourselves in the moment.
Okay, what Melissa just said right now, I want to go back to it because we were talking about collecting data. So when she says think and ink it, that is something we always did with our teachers, with our students. Think about it for a while and then write about it. So if you write down in your notes, think it, ink it, that is so helpful. I'm so glad you brought that one up, Melissa, because that is a good way to do it. Okay, we're on topic number 2. We're going to be talking about energy management and time management. All right. And so we're going to be explaining about why traditional time blocking fails the ADHD brains. Okay. Because a lot of people might say, okay, from this time to this time, I'm going to do this. From this time to this time, I'm going to do this. And you know, and I know we get distracted. We get
Always.
distracted. We get on a topic, we get in our zone, and we're just staying there doing it, doing it. But for example, we were talking about time blocking and the 3 things about what Steve Jobs used to do, noticing the timeline of where things are and then picking the 3 things. So instead of doing time blocking, we're going to be talking about other ways that we can talk about what this means and why traditional time blocking fails the ADHD brain. And I think one of the things that we were talking about was theme days, talking about in the old-fashioned way at times. In the women used to always have, okay, we're going to do laundry on Mondays. On Tuesdays, we're going to work on this. On Wednesdays, we're going to work on this. And I think it allowed women back in those days that if other things happened, that was okay because she could work it in and figure things out. But in businesses now, when we're not allowed to do that, what are some other things that happen having to do with the time blocking in the ADHD brain?
Well, I think it's also important to be able to identify things that interest us and don't interest us. Because as you know, ADHD brains operate on an interest-based nervous system, not important based. So what's important to someone else may be of very little importance to me. And we are definitely not jiving at that time, right? And whereas you go into a neurotypical conversation, then it's pretty much even keeled, right? But you get one ADHD brain in there, it's going to either go up or down. You get another one, now we're on different because our passions are different. And so we as neurodivergent people also have to understand that neurotypical brains don't work like ours. Just the same expectation we have of neurotypicals to understand that we're the outliers. Our brains work a little bit differently, so we process, right? And boredom, what we perceive as boredom is life-threatening, right? That's why you see so many kids that can't sit still during lectures. And so I think you were right talking about like the theme days and how a lot of businesses now are using unconventional time blocks. Some of them are taking away Fridays, even Fridays. You work 4-day work weeks, and you would think, oh, you're losing a whole 8-hour day, but you're not. You're increasing productivity in those 4 days, right? And so that in itself is so important for ADHD brains and neurodivergence. Because if you tell me that I'm gonna have more time to do the things that interest me, that's a momentum agitator. It's gonna get my momentum going. And so I think crafting a work environment is really important also because ADHD brains are creative, right? We focus a lot on problem solving, but we also are the outliers in that we challenge assumptions, right? And we are keen observers of behavior. And sometimes we don't have the filter to be able to think before we speak, right? So it's not just about scheduling blocks and the time where we're most productive. It's also about knowing which situations are going to drain us and give us more energy. Time tracking is really important. Tracking your time, tracking your energy levels. Also tasks like where you have a batching. I don't know if people are familiar with batching. It's just like batch files. You kind of put a bunch of those tasks that you have in certain time blocks based on your own perception of time, right? What else? Transitioning from one thing to another is really important as well when we're thinking about time blocking, theme days, reserving your energy, for different blocks of the day.
And another thing we can do is also in our schedules, we make sure that from morning to the evening that we are taking care of our bodies, making sure that we have the brain breaks, making sure that we have time to ground ourselves, to go outside, to do things in between the schedules that we have where we're even doing batches. So for example, for you and for myself, we've tried to figure out what times they're better for us as a team to come together, and when I know you're going to be on, when I know I'm going to be on, and we can figure that out very well to know when our energy peaks are, to know that we're going to get these 3 things taken care of today. Okay. And sometimes you might need help. Sometimes I might need help. We both help each other to do that. But to also understand, for example, uh, you're a mom. So I know that there's certain times of the day that you need to make sure about lunch. You need to make sure about picking up the girls from school. You need to make sure about stuff. And I'm aware of that. And so to make sure that we're continuing using our time, even though we have to go along with the schedules of other people, the schedules of the schools, the schedules of other people in our family that can help us at certain times, then we need it to be allow ourselves the grace, because that's another thing that happens with neurodivergent people feeling guilty that the time ran away from us and we didn't get enough done. And it's continuing the negative verbiage in our heads, which hurts us very much. But we're going to continue with our community. We're going to continue with supporting people. We're going to continue with all the different coping tools that we're going to be working on. And one, to please go back to what Melissa just said. Melissa just said, think and ink. Think and ink. When you record what you're going on in the situation, when you record what's going on in your head, it helps you with the next situation. And the same thing with the triggers that people have with drinking or smoking or things like that. When you understand yourself better, you can do better. But a lot of what we're going to be working on is just understanding ourselves better. Right, Melissa?
Yeah. And I want to ask you kind of a real world, to provide a real world example, Kat. So give us a specific time when you try to force yourself to work during one of your low energy periods. What happened? What did you learn?
My head hurt. My body hurt. My body was rejecting everything that was going on because I have been in situations, in meetings, for example, where we're required to be there all day, and you know what I'm talking about. And there are people who are not paying attention, so it's very distracting. People are having side comments and it's very distracting. So, uh, in those days, it was very hard for my body to do what was being asked of me because right after you barely got some directions, you're being told you have to work with people at your table. And it's like, okay, so everyone's a lot of times, this is true, looking at you going, you're the leader, you figure it out. And it's like, dude, like we're all here together. So there have been times when it's been extremely hard for me in these situations because I wanted to shut down. I wanted to shut down. I wanted to be gone anywhere else but there. So what did I do? I did my best. I buckled right in with a grin on my face and tried to do the best I could do just to get through it. Just let's get it done so we can get our poster on the wall with all of our 10 things that our group's going to do this whole semester. Let's just get it done. But inside it was burning me because some people were just sitting there waiting for you to do all the work and not contributing, or while you're trying to do something positive, they're going, no, I don't like that. No. So for me, it's just basically almost blocking out the negativity and just deciding we're going to get this done. Is that the kind of thing that you were asking me about?
Yeah, yeah, just how you react and how you, because it really is important for us to understand how we react, but also in social situations with neurotypicals and neurodivergence, we also want to be aware of how other people react. It's really important, but also we don't want to mask the entire time because, like Kathy said, it just drains you. It drains you, right? So there's a difference in being mindful of other people and also preserving our own peace and sanity and energy. So it's a thin line. It really is for us. Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay. Well, you were mentioning theme days earlier, that we can talk about certain things that we can do in a typical week. I know, for example, for these YouTube days, we have YouTube days on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which means Mondays, we're making sure we have everything ready so that when we come live on Tuesdays, we're ready to go. On Wednesdays, we work on it so we're ready for Thursdays. And then on Fridays and Fridays, then we work on taking those videos so we can have shorts and figure out what to do. This is our first week, so this is our plan. I'm hoping we can go and do all this stuff because since we're brand new YouTube creators here, that's our plan. So it's plan on Mondays, due on Tuesdays. Plus, we're trying to get ready for our 3-day event that we're going to have in November. We're trying to get ready for December. We're getting all of our prospects ready to have to get the emails in online and learning, go high level, all these big things we're trying to do. But meanwhile, our focus is getting this YouTube channel started so that we can provide really a place for ourselves first, right, Melissa? A place for
Yeah.
ourselves so we can go back and forth and share our conversations with the world, because we saw so much value in our conversations. It's like, you know what, we need to be sharing this with the world, girlfriend. It's like, yeah, right. So, and it felt very natural for us, because I feel our conversations always have to do with research, has to do with, did you know that, and we talk about, yeah, I felt that. So I think in that way it's very natural for us. But the way we have theme days for us right now to make sure the YouTube channel happens is preparation on Mondays, do it on Tuesdays, and we need to always debrief. We're working on debriefing, and then Wednesdays plan again, because we're trying to do it so that Tuesdays and Thursdays sort of are a flow, so that if anybody wants to binge on our videos later on, what they can do is they notice a flow between them, and not all of a sudden we're talking about this one day, we're talking about this one day. No, but that there's going to be a flow between all of them. And in it, we're solving our problems as new entrepreneurs. And we're hoping that we're going to bring people along that are like us, neurodivergent women, that want to go with us to develop their own businesses. So, going back to my question, you mentioned theme days. Can you walk us through a typical week for energy management that could help people instead of time blocking?
Yeah, I loved how you kind of glossed over our ebbs and flows, right? Because we also it's not just about our energy, but it's also about our responsibilities and roles, right? You being a wife and a farmer, right? Yes, you need time to pick the eggs, right? And then me being a mom, I will tell you, yesterday we were going to debrief, right? We say we're going to debrief every day, but because I had my 4-year-old vomiting all over the house. And then 4 in the morning, I had my 7-month-old starting with the sniffles. I told Kat this morning, or I told her yesterday, I'm so sorry I couldn't debrief, right? So that felt like I did not check the box. But then I had to tell myself, give me grace, right? And I know this is not something I have to worry about with Kat. She is always very graceful and very understanding. It's again self-imposed, right? Expectations. And then this morning, I said, okay, can you give me some time because my eyes are all swollen from not sleeping, my throat, I sounded like a frog. And of course, Kat's response was, yeah, no rush, whatever you need. And because we know each other and we know that we have those expectations, Kathy knows if I would have forced myself to just jump on, I wouldn't have been fully present, not for her, not for our business. And so, all those little situations, those nuances with our day to day, like you mentioned, the goat has been sick. That's a big thing, right? Because there's a chain of reaction that steps that go. It's also external factors that some that we can't anticipate or change, but we can change how we respond to those. So going to your question about like what a typical week looks like, I think when we started kind of saying, what are our work days? We were like, oh, Monday through Friday, we're working. But that was the typical system of work. We're going to work 9 to 5, 8 to 5. And we did that, but it really wasn't working for me. It wasn't working for Kat as well. So now it had to be, okay, what are the times when you're most active, when I'm most or my brain is most active, more available. So my week kind of again ebbs and flows as well. Kathy knows I'm not a morning person, even though I'm up at 4, 5, 6 in the morning. She knows that I have my peak moments of creativity in the middle of the night, could be between midnight and 2 or 3 in the morning. So my work week is not very typical. It really depends on kind of what's happening, but I do know that I'm not going to get on a call with Kathy at 7:30 in the morning to make big decisions because I've just come off of mommy duty, right? And my brain still needs to transition into, okay, I was mommy overnight, now I'm CEO this morning, and then 4 o'clock my daughter comes home, now I'm shifting. So I have a lot of transitions, and what I want to work better at is having transition rituals where I know this is where I'm stopping to shift my mindset from work to mommy mode, from work to mommy mode, business partner, soundboard. And so at this point, I'm going to be honest, my typical work week is really directed by how my family is, the needs of my family, especially because my girls have been sick. And that's one big thing. And I'm so blessed to have a business partner and a friend who understands that, just as the same way I understand the roles and responsibilities she has as a wife and as a caretaker of her farm, her homestead. And so I've challenged myself to kind of push myself out of my normal areas of productivity because I do want my schedule to be conducive with creativity and problem solving and being a better business partner and being a better mom and all of these things. So as my ADHD brain is still trying to figure that out, if I hadn't said it earlier, and I don't think I did, but I resigned in June from my typical 8 to 5 job. So now we're making our own hours. And so we're getting there. And I think I'm getting better at being more productive and finding the times that Kat and I can work together to be the most productive and still be able to have boundaries of our for our family and ourselves, without having to feel bad all the time.
So now we're going to ask y'all for a quick poll. If you go down in the comments, let us know if you're a hyper-focused person in the mornings or a hyper-focused person in the evenings, because we want to see what our community looks like, because there's no way that everyone is the same, and it's okay. So let's go on to our topic number 3, the ADHD advantage in entrepreneurship. So this one is a very positive thing, and I want y'all to be very happy that you're neurodivergent, because we're going to give you a lot of good news about this. And one of the big things that I really like is all the research that we've done on this part. So Melissa's going to be sharing some of that with you, and if she lets me, I'm going to share some with you. And this part is the good part. Be happier entrepreneurs. It's good.
Yeah, so here we're going to be talking about leveraging your superpowers, right? Our neurodivergent superpowers. And there's so many. There's so many that I think not even Kat and I realized are our superpowers that we've actually had perceived as negative connotations. And for me, time blindness is crazy. Sometimes I lose track of time, but on other hands, I'm very hyper focused on things that interest me, and the time is like this. So some of the key discussion points we're going to talk about is a little bit of statistic and some of the other ways that being ADHD or having an ADHD brain actually enhances a lot of aspects of our lives. So just some stats: 29 to 35% of entrepreneurs report having ADHD, significantly higher than the general population, which is between 4 and 6%. We say 4 and 6 because there's so many different um uh so much different data. There's different data points, right? And so I told her, why is it so high? Why do we, kind of self-report those things? So we're going to talk about that. Hyperactivity and impulsivity are positively associated with entrepreneurial intentions and behaviors. ADHD enhances creativity, adaptability, and opportunity recognition. And of course, companies who embrace neurodiversity see, Kat said this earlier, 48% higher productivity rates. And this is according to JP Morgan Chase and their study, which is highly reputable. And so we're going to kind of delve into some of these things. But I do want to just be a little vulnerable right now. I am very hyperactive, and I'm not hyperactive externally. I'm hyperactive internally, and I have intensities of thought and emotion. So even here, I move a lot. So you all may notice I'm being completely vulnerable. I have to shift different ways because my brain is almost shifting to different ideas. So I'm kind of like, I'm kind of manifesting what's in my brain. So I look up a lot, I tap a lot. And so that kind of goes into that hyperactivity that we're going to kind of be talking about that I always perceived as being negative. But now I'm not asking for permission. This is who I am, and this is how I process the really great things in my life. And this is great. Me sitting here with Kat, having a chat about our brains and about how we can help other women also feel good about themselves and turn those negative connotations to positive outcomes and really see them as superpowers.
Yeah, to me, this is therapy because it's good that I hyper focus. It's good that you hyper focus because then I know you're going to get stuff done. I know I'm going to get stuff done. And then both of us being, I thought it was really cool that both of us were science teachers at some point in our careers, because in being science teachers, you have to notice patterns,
Yeah.
because nature is patterns, science is patterns, all the different sciences are patterns. And so it's so much easier for us to notice the patterns and to be able to say, oh, well, that's like this, and explain the patterns so much easier. And then problem solving. It was so cool to me that I had studied the question formulation technique from the Right Question Institute, and that you did as well, because we love creative problem solving.
Yeah.
We love that kind of thing. And so both of us learning how to do it to try to help other people how to do it, that to me was so important. And then the other thing is with ADHD, we're practicing risk taking, because
Yes.
even the fact that we say that we have neuro different issues, reframing that instead of saying issues, I love the word used earlier, superpowers. It's more of a superpower because who else would do this? And that little saying, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? That is so powerful in my heart because it helps me to keep on going forward and taking risks that normally I would have shut down and told myself no. So, how we're helping each other with our superpowers to use this for our business and use this for our families, for our futures, not only for ourselves, but the people around us. I think that's also helping us. And then learning about when our best time is to work. And so taking the data, figuring things out, and we don't have to solve things today, right? We have time to do this. We're allowing ourselves time to do this. For example, to develop this business. We're giving ourselves 6 months to really get everything going really well on our YouTube channel and in our business. So we're starting out with some people that are going to help us with this, our founding people that we're going to collect hopefully from this community here in YouTube, and the people that you bring in here, we can get it started. So what do you think about that, Melissa? Are we going on the right track, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think, in some of our notes as we're kind of talking, yesterday, I think I mentioned to you how I was making a distinction between hyperfocus, right, and hyperfixation,
Yes.
right? Hyperfixation is fixating on one thing and kind of in that ruminating loop, and that does not serve me 9 times out of 10.
No.
But being hyper focused does. And now that I've challenged myself to try to do that deep work, the work that's going to have most favorable outcomes for us, our time where we kind of are in sync and aligned, when I'm hyper focused, that's when I know I'm at my best. I'm in my zone, that flow zone, right? That zone that we've been kind of talking about, that genius zone. Hey, that's what it is. Because when do we light up, Kat? We light up when we're talking about helping neurodivergent women with all these ahas and self-discovery and, just these things that we're learning about ourselves. So yeah, definitely, I think, no, I know Let me speak concisely. I know that what we're doing is not only benefiting us and our families, but it's going to benefit, and we do want to build a legacy. We want to, be the change you want to see in the world, right? So no longer sitting idly by, dimming our brightness, but actually just shining bright so other neurodivergent women can kind of be drawn to us so we can kind of help them and probably learn from them as well. So yeah, I think we're doing a great job at starting to identify our superpowers and our strengths. And oftentimes we say, oh, it's a strength, but a strength may not give it the leverage and the weight that it really has. A superpower is really something that not only helps you, but more importantly, helps other people.
And that's where we're trying to work for ourselves and for everyone around that ADHD, ADD, it's seen as a deficit or a disorder. And we're trying to work to see it more as a superpower and help ourselves and people around us to reframe the, instead of saying disorder and deficit or disease and things like that, but make it more our traits as a competitive advantage. For example, in my family, I'm learning my cousins that are from Mexico, they all have their own businesses and did very well because they're all neurodivergent and they didn't need to work for anybody else. They can work for themselves and do it their own way. They can no voy a because in my family, it was very hard, for example, my brothers and sisters to work for different companies. They had a lot of issues, even more than I ever had. So I see that as more of, they probably would have done so much better if they would have started their own business and had a day where they followed their own rules and their own rhythm of their family, that they could provide a better situation using their superpowers instead of being put down in their companies and stuff. So what do you think? How can we help other women reframe this difference that we are neurotypical instead of neurotypical, we're neurodivergent? How can we help them to see it as a superpower?
I think the first step with learning anything, like as teachers, what is the first step that we use? We think about Marzano vocabulary, understanding the verbs, understanding the terms. What does it mean to be, what is neurodiversity? Well, that's that all different brains think and process differently. What does it mean to be self-identified as neurodivergent? What is neurotypical? And what are the different nuances and dimensions under those? I know our main topic that we've been focusing on is ADHD, but we've also talked about the intersections, right, of ADHD, autism, being gifted, having Tourette syndrome, and there's so many different dimensions under that neurodiversity umbrella, so to speak. So I think understanding the language first and foremost is really important. And then once you understand, now you can self-identify with and see these symptoms. Things are going to resonate better with you when you hear certain words and you hear, you're like, oh, that's me. Now I understand. Like we've said several terms today that people might not understand: self-sabotage, self-defeating. It seems like, yeah, that's easy. I know what sabotage is. I know, but how is that manifested? What are the characteristics of that? What does it mean to be neurodiverse? And what are the characteristics of that? Intersections of our culture, intersections of our our sexuality, even how we identify ourselves in the world. There's so many different intersections that neurodiverse individuals, especially women, have to grapple with. And the more you know, the better prepared you are to tackle a lot of the challenges that we face. And the goal is for us to become self-actualized, as to be able to say, okay, what is my biggest superpower as a neurodivergent person? Maybe it is the powers in the knowing that I have these powers, knowing that I have these strengths, because now I'm better equipped and I've primed my brain to deal with the negative aspects of it. And so reframing, I think, starts again, going back to your question, with just understanding um, the language in this new um, this new world of neurodivergence because it is new to many of us. And some people might not even have heard that term, right? Neurospicy is one of the new words, right?
I
People
love
that
that one.
I love neurospicy, right? Because we're bold and we're creative or problem solve, but other people may see that as aggressive and not assertive, right? So
Okay.
there's different ways. So understanding the language, I think, is the first thing to start now using the concise language to begin reframing, even ADHD, even the word disorder, definitely.
Okay. So we're going to invite all of you to comment below. What is one trait of being neurospicy that you used to hide, but now that you can actually see it as a secret weapon? So let's flip the script and talk about being neurospicy down in the comments below. Whether you're live or in the replay, let us know what you're thinking about. Okay, Melissa, it's time for topic number 4.
Yay.
Ah,
Oh, this is one of our faves. We've been talking
yes.
about this a lot. Boundary setting.
Stopping the yes epidemic. So, boundary setting. We started talking about it on Tuesday, but let's talk about a little bit more about helping ADHD women, or anyway, our kind of women, not to be people pleasers. That everything is like you need to do it because you're a woman. You need to. So, we need to reframe this, right? So, in this situation, most common mistakes that women with neurodivergency make as entrepreneurs is saying yes to everything, right?
Yes.
Because saying no makes us feel a personal rejection. And we know that we get overcommitted. Both of us have suffered from overcommitment, which has led to burnout, which has led to people demanding our help even though we're busy with something else. It's like, no, I need you to help me now with this. You're going to come and help me because there are bosses. We say, okay, yes. So now we're going to be our own bosses. How do we do that? How do we overcome the situation of saying yes all the time? And accountability, accountability. So
So
how do
important.
we use accountability to stop the overwhelm with all the triggers, procrastination, self-sabotage? So how do we do all this, Melissa?
Mean, there's so many different ways. I know I mentioned it in our last live video about even just having an accountability partner,
Mhm.
right? Having someone to check in with, having someone who can help ground you, having someone, even if it's just to tell you, stop apologizing. It's not your fault. Stop asking for permission, right? You're right. So even things like that. And having someone, if you have someone, if you don't have someone, then you rely on yourself. So, having maybe some grounding techniques, some affirmations that help you, even reminders, post-it reminders that you are enough. It's okay to say no. And realizing that if you are someone who procrastinates, which is one of the common characteristics of someone with ADHD, overcommitting yourself is the enemy of productivity. Because if you procrastinate, you're probably not going to finish the things that you need to do for yourself. What's going to happen? You overcommit, you say yes, and now fear of rejection. I can't let them down. I have to put this above. So, also knowing, being able to identify what are the most important things that I have to get done before I can extend myself or my services to anyone else, right? One key thing is the response time. Allowing people to understand, maybe emails, phone calls is I need 24 hours to respond. Let me check my schedule to see if I'm available. Or maybe I need 48 hours. My response rule is I need 48 hours. I cannot commit to anything immediately because I need to buy myself some thinking time. I need to see if this is something that one, I can do and do it to the best of my ability, and also if it serves me in some capacity. And by no means am I saying be self-serving and sacrifice, allow others to sacrifice, but we have to conserve our energy and preserve our peace. And sometimes overcommitting just already throws us into that chaos, throws us into that chaos. Something else is a decision matrix, right? I can only say yes if it meets this 2 out of 3 criteria or 3 out of 5 criteria, depending what your markers for success or outcomes are. So I might not say yes if you tell me you need it within the hour. That is not on my criteria list, right? Another thing might be role playing, practicing no scripts, being able to say no. And it sounds funny and interesting, but if it does not align with us, we have to be able to verbalize um, oftentimes why we can't do it. If we just say, nope, sorry, can't, we also know that that might offend the other person, but to be able to be vulnerable and honest and say, I would love to do that. I would love to help you with this, but right now I am maxed out. And if I take on this role or if I take on this task, it is not going to be what you need it to be. And then people will respect you for that because now you're giving them a different perspective on where you're at in your own basic needs too. And the last thing I would say is delegating, releasing some of that power, right? Releasing sometimes, like even thinking about OCD, perfectionism, we want to control so many aspects of what we're doing. And this is in personal life and in business. But sometimes we have to be able to delegate some tasks, delegate even the small basic tasks to open up our schedule, not even to be more productive, but to have some rest and recovery time, right? I may say, okay, Kat works better on this, and I work better here. Let's play to our strengths, right? Kat, can you do this? Okay, Mel, can you do this? That's something that we've been working on. And actually, I'm going to be honest again. I feel like because I have my babies, right? Kat has actually been carrying the load of the business for quite some time. And now that I'm shifting into working from home and working on a better schedule, now we're better able to balance some of those requirements, duties, things that we have to do. But I will say Kat is like a boss at logistics, right? She is. And I know it's frustrating and all these things, but one thing I know about Kat is she loves to learn. She loves to learn just like I do. So I thank you for that, Kat, for helping hold down the fort, so to speak, right? While I was over here in my family and doing stuff like that. And so being able to take on tasks is important, but also not at the expense of your own energy and well-being.
And in going back to our business and to help other entrepreneurs, number one, we learn from the best out there. The first thing you have to do is some non-negotiables. And some of the non-negotiables that we've gone through are our time limits. We will not let our business take over our families because we've already worked for other people who took over our time. And it happened very strongly. It always happened. We were not working 40-hour work weeks. We were expected to stay. If there was a board meeting, we were expected to stay till 8 o'clock sometimes. And there were a couple of times that it went past midnight, believe it or not. And then Saturdays, well, give up your Saturdays kind of thing. But when COVID hit, we were getting texts on our phones. I got some all the way to midnight where they expected us to be ready to go the next morning at 7 o'clock. You better be there because this, that, and the other. And it was very difficult. There were some months, there were some years that we didn't get Saturdays in a whole month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. Within 5 months, we might have gotten 1 or 2 Saturdays off. Do you remember that, Melissa? It
I
was
remember.
extremely difficult. So in our time. So with our business, non-negotiable is time. Whatever we develop, we have to have enough time for our families. We have to have enough time to relax ourselves so we're not going crazy ourselves. And I mentioned before, with all the different criteria that Melissa was talking about for herself, for our business, we have to know that there's some revenue potential. We have to know that we actually are interested in this and talking about whatever we're going to talk about, which I'm looking forward to helping other women find their passions, because you and I, we're jack of all trades and a master of none kind of thing. We might be a master of a couple of them, but there's so many interests that we have that, oh, you want to do business on that? Cool, let's go research that one. I'm so looking forward to that, very much so, because I'm interested in almost everything. And then growth opportunity. We have to know that it's going to serve the people out there. It's going to serve us. We have to believe in it. So it has to align with our values. And it has to be something where I said before that there's some kind of a gain. It's either going to heal us and learning about being neurodivergent and learning that it's actually a superpower. It's helping me to heal. And I think it's helping me to be a better friend, a better business partner. I think I'm a better wife right now, also learning that, okay, it's not my fault. And then the other thing is fun. So if we're with the genuine interest and we know it's going to help our family and stuff like that, it's going to be fun. And so I think we're defining our own heaven with this, don't you think? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Okay. So
I want
we
to ask you a
can,
question,
oh,
Kat.
sure,
Can I
ask
ask
me a
you a
question.
question?
Yes.
I want you to be honest, and I want you to share when was, maybe not the last time, but one time that you can recall where you said yes to something that you immediately regretted, that did not align with your values, that was not a growth opportunity, was not a genuine interest, or had some type of positive outcome for you.
Well, that is hard because a lot of times it really does. I try to find the positive in different things. But there have been many times where I was called to, okay, I'm really good at going through copy and seeing if it's said properly. And of course, we live in the Rio Grande Valley, and sometimes the knowing two or three languages, sometimes you're a little bit more in one language than the other one, and things are said differently, kind of thing. And so I was called many times to go through copy before it went to the board, copy before it went to be official. And although I was good at it, it's almost like I wish I wasn't, because it was always it was very taxing on me. Just because I was good at it, I didn't enjoy it. I was always a little bit afraid of what if they're not going to like this and I get blamed for it. So it's had a lot to do with that. What if this isn't good enough and people come back and complain? So little by little, I have been learning about taking rejection better than I used to. Because when I lived in Houston and worked for the school district up there, and especially in Spring Branch, there was such a positive attitude if you were very creative. And in Houston ISD, if you wanted to give workshops, you wanted to help out writing curriculum, is the opportunities were all there. And so if I wanted to do things, I did it my way. I did it my way. So it was such a positive thing. And then to come back to the valley with a different mindset of what was happening, and the values for people were just as good as anywhere else. I loved that we grew up in Brownsville. I love that we grew up in a small town. There are so many things I feel so fortunate about. But when it comes to thinking like a business person, when it comes to thinking about valuing people, it's been difficult. This topic is very difficult for me to even talk about right now, but did I basically explain
Yeah,
that?
yeah, you really, I love that you didn't give one example, which is what my prompt was, but I love that you gave more of your approach to how you've experienced over the years, because I think it's important that people understand that oftentimes we don't want to say no. We want to help people. but sometimes saying no is the best and most favorable outcome. And I just want to add to your work, kind of just really quickly. So often, Kat would text me and say, "Hey, I'm working on something," whether it was copy for the assistant superintendent, or there was a presentation slides or curriculum writing, right? You're, prepping for family, just so much. Kat and I have done so much as far as soundboarding for each other. But I will tell you that I want to say 10 times out of 10. I don't even think there's a one time that I told her that's not enough and you need to give some more. More often than not, and I'll probably always, I said, Kat, the standard is here and you're giving here. So it's okay to not it's okay to stop where you're at, because one thing that we do is we always want to keep perfecting and getting better, and but then we get stuck in analysis paralysis, right? Overanalyzing every single detail. So I just wanted to share that because I think it was important that even though you went from Houston in a highly creative, neurodivergent friendly work environment to a boxed kind of closed system that didn't serve you, you were so great in those moments of creativity. But because you questioned yourself so much about, if you were giving enough, then it really didn't serve you. It didn't serve you when you're doing so much for everybody else and it's so creative. Because then what happens? Oh, we can always rely on Kat. Just like we can always go back to Melissa. Kat will do it, Melissa will do it, right? When we want to just close the door and be like, not in service, out of service. So I just wanted to add that because you're so creative and that's one of your superpowers, I think, is your creativity and problem solving and really detail oriented.
I think the first time someone pointed out to me that I said yes too much was in college. Becky Valdez and Henry Sears were our sponsors for the Student Senate at Texas Southmost College, and I was the president. And at the end of the year, Becky gave these little plaques to everyone. Of course, she gave me mine last, right? She get all the members, and then she went up the officers, and then mine was last. And mine was, "It's okay, I'll do it." And I was a little shocked that that's what she said. And she said, "I've noticed this whole year when anyone in a committee or someone fell down and they weren't going to fulfill their responsibility, Kat did it." And it was my first time ever that I noticed that I didn't delegate enough, that I didn't say no enough. And even though I think we did a lot of really good things the time that I was there. We got the governor in, we got people in to interview all the way down in Brownsville, Texas. We got a lot of stuff done. We went to Laredo, and we went to Amarillo for the state convention of junior colleges and stuff like that. And it was the first time that I had to sit back and look at myself and say, did I do a disservice by not helping other people to step up? And so in my leadership part of it, I felt it was a negative that she said that, even though I think she meant it as a positive, that I'd always come through. But in my head as a leader, every time I've heard delegate, I always tell myself, you need to do that more. And I'm sort of proud of us that we knew that we didn't know how to do click funnels and go high level and stuff, but that we've figured out that we need some help.
Yeah,
And
for
we do
sure.
have help for our first event from people that have done this before and know the system and stuff like that, so that we can replicate it later. So I think in that way, it's been more helpful for now.
Yeah,
Okay.
do you think, Kat, that that was RSD at the time? Like now we know what RSD is and we've had to pay. Do you think that do you,
Don't you
is it
think it
like,
was?
yeah, the clarity cloud is above me. All these puzzle pieces are coming together, right?
Yeah. When I
Okay.
looked at it, I looked at it basically telling me you need to be a better leader. You need to delegate more. That's what it
And you know, those are missed opportunities to build capacity in other people. If we keep taking on the tasks that we are experts at, then we don't allow, inadvertently, we do not allow others to build their capacity or even just to build a little bit more knowledge. And that's what we want. We wanted it in education. We want that in business. As a business owner, I would want my employees not to just do as I say, but to, you know, do as I do. Let me model, let me mentor. That way I build capacity in you. And then one day you'll be your own boss and you'll be able
Yeah.
to delegate. So that's so important.
I think since then, I've been much better at it. And I think that's another reason why I gave so many workshops so I could help other people so that they'd be successful. Even my last workshop that I did at Region 1, when Dr. Trevino was there from South Texas ISD, and I was explaining to them about QFT and how important it was, the question formulation technique that I was just talking about earlier. And I told them, you don't need me. You can go on their website, on the Right Question Institute website. You can learn it from there. They explain everything. They have templates for it. They have videos and everything like that. And still, she came up to me and said, I know you said that we can do it on our own, but I still want to hire you. Do you remember that? That was the impetus of me telling you, hey, Melissa, are you serious about starting a business? Because we already
Yeah.
have South
You know
Texas
what,
Doctor.
Kat?
Yeah,
I
tell me.
will comment on the time we said no together. Do you
Okay.
already know what I'm saying for
Yes,
South
go
Texas
ahead.
ISD?
Yep.
Where after that, South Texas ISD wanted to hire you, right? And you brought us because you know we were coming into business together. And at first you're like, yes, automatically, because wow, that's that's valuable for us. But I still remember coming downstairs, getting into your truck or your car, and us sitting there and saying, is this worth what our value is, the price point that they gave us? And immediately we said no.
Mhm.
And not because we didn't want to help them, because of course you were invested, you wanted to help them. But even then, before we were fully in the throes of our business, we knew how much we were worth, and we knew that we valued ourselves and our knowledge more than to just say, hey, we're going to go and plant these seeds of knowledge and the seeds of questioning. And it wasn't about the money, it was about the value and the expectation. And so that was a time, I'm proud of us now looking back, that we both agreed to say no. And girl, I know we ruminated on both of we both ruminated on the decision. Was this a bad decision? Should we have just taken it to the, but now I'm so glad that we didn't. And it was one of the best decisions because I think that started our journey towards putting value in what we know and in our zone of genius and in our level of expertise in the different areas that we have. So yeah, that I think we've gotten a lot better at that for sure. And that's helped us to recover from and fight burnout, right? That's really what we're trying to avoid by overcommitting, is not burning out, not burning, and then we're just like dimming our light instead of shining brightly in things that we're passionate about.
Okay. We are ready for topic number 5, building sustainable systems. Now, we're practicing doing this right now, Melissa and myself. We are trying to create a business that's friendly to our neurodivergency, and to make sure that every time we're doing something for our clients, for our YouTube channel, that it's helping to be a positive situation. Because why, Melissa? Because traditional systems are not
Don't
designed
work for us.
for brains,
No,
right?
no.
And if we simplify things for our brains and understand that there's going to be times of high motivation, low motivation, or high energy, low energy, that we're going to have to do something about it. We've talked also about when you have to delegate, get virtual assistants or tools, chat GPT kind of things that are helpful to help us hone in on what's out there that's needed the most. And we've discussed rest and recovery. So these are some things that can help everybody with their infrastructure. And we're trying to do that with ourselves, with our business. So let's talk about a little bit more about this actionable steps that people can do to take care of the systems they need to develop for their businesses.
I think one of the things is that is tough for me is so many steps, so many things to get to. Like I want to try to just bypass so many steps. My brain is always seeking dopamine, right? And these, pleasure moments of pleasure and gratification in doing something good, right? And so I think one of the first steps is auditing our current systems. What is working for us? Keep doing that or do more of that. What isn't working for us? And if you can't change that, you can kind of work around it or build a tool set to help you kind of deal with decision fatigue. That's one thing that I've dealt with. We were talking about that. I think one of the examples I gave you, because I saw it, was, this one pen is one decision. The neurotypical person has one decision to make, one point of the pen, one color. But the pen that has multiple inks is more like the ADHD brain because it's like, is it going to be red, purple, yellow, green, blue, black? And so we have so many decisions in our brains, and that often causes decision fatigue. And then we don't end up making the good decisions, right? We end up just making impulsive decisions. I think one of the other things is a one-touch rule, handling emails, messages once instead of rereading them. When I worked for the school district, especially when I got an email from a teacher, less from administrators, more from teachers, I would reread it, and I would respond, draft, come back to it, and then change it. How am I coming off here? Am I answering the question? Because I was so invested in them in this relationship that I wanted to make sure that I was getting it right. But really now I know one or two touches. I'm gonna just write it and then just maybe ask Kathy, hey, read this. What does it sound like? And then boom, right? Using AI tools. Oh my gosh, Chat GPT on our desktop has been amazing, right? Chat GPT, time blocking for prioritization, breaking down overwhelming tasks or steps. Like there's some things that they're so laborious to me. So I have to stop and say, okay, how do I have to do this? When am I going to do this? I'm going to have to do it when I have the most energy, right? Because I'm not going to be able to do that. And then you mentioned scheduling the rest and recovery time. And one of the things that is really important too is having visual, right? Having visual representations of the time or the day or things that we need to do. I know Kat and I, when we're going to write, we got to have our colored pens and our colored highlighters. And we always have to have a journal with us. These are physical reminders, right, of things that our brains kind of rely on to compartmentalize or to chunk the things that we have to do. So those are just some of the actions that we take and that others can take to help with that, creating a ADHD friendly system and environment.
I think another thing that's helped us is we have Zen Business where we developed our LLC. And they have the business plan that's in there. And for myself, even when I'm working in my little journal here that I'm working with, I try to always put my tasks, my dates, and I know exactly. I turn the page and I put the next date. I turn the page and I put my next date. Well, I'm not sure I want to show you all my notes here, but then when I go through it again, then I have to highlight and get things going. And I have to put dates. And sometimes I write really big when it's really important. And
So
then
do I, Kat.
okay. And then if I have to remind myself things like the post-it note, I have to put it in here. I needed my bio and I need professional photo. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's so many things that we need to do to get our business started. But It's one step at a time. And this is the one I love that we got at our last thing is what?
Yay. Progress, not perfection.
So
Yes.
that's what we just got in our last meeting. And so I think every day we're progressing. Even
Yeah.
yesterday, I was able to send you information. You sent it back to me, so we were able to keep on going with
Yeah.
that. So is there
Yeah.
anything else? Yes, ma'am.
I love that I mean, even looking at your own notes right now, right? You process them. If you had my notes, you probably wouldn't process them the same. If I had your notes, one thing I did when we were at our event, I divide pages. I do page breaks, right? So like I get my highlighter and I break off that page because now I know my brain is going to transition into another block or another topic, or maybe it's the same topic, but a subtopic, right? Underneath there. And so I love that we are congruent in that way, that we both use these note-taking skills, right, to help with our executive functioning and the things that we need to do. Um, can you give us a before and after example of a complicated system that you simplify? Something that maybe is challenging and difficult, even if it's reading something or approaching something, and you have simplified it, or you have a simple way of approaching it.
I can give you a few that I did with students.
Yeah, any.
Okay. Different times. I know sign language. My sister got her master's degree in deaf ed, and although she's almost 10 years older than I am, I was working on my bachelor's at the time, and so I took the same courses she did. I was allowed to by Dr. White from Texas Women's University to take it as a bachelor's. So I learned sign language. I learned a lot that helped me understand what the brain goes through with language development, which helped me as a bilingual teacher. So I've used sign language many times to explain the rock cycle, to explain different things like poetry. When I had one of my students had to learn, if they learned a poem, according to the principal, Dr. Bruner at Will Rogers Elementary many years ago, if you learn this little poem, the first class that does it, they're going to get an ice cream party. So I took my third and fourth grade bilingual students outside and I said, ¿Ustedes quieren aprender algo para una fiestita? And they go, yeah. Do you want to have a little party? And they said, sure. You want some ice cream? They go, sure. And I said, well, if we learn this, Dr. Bruner's going to give us a party. And so instead of having the normal recess, because at that time we didn't have a PE teacher, so we were demanded to go at a certain time for recess. So we went at that time and we practiced. And I taught them all the signs of good, better, best. Never let it rest till your good is
Okay.
better and your better is best. And they learned it. And then another time we learned another thing. And they came in and they said it in English. They didn't forget a word. They got it going really well. And Dr. Bruner said, I only gave this to you an hour and a half ago. How did you do this? And I said, sign language.
Yeah.
So I've used sign language not only for that, but art to explain, for example, the most important thing you teach in seventh grade at that time is probably earlier now, but at that time it was the photosynthesis and how it goes from this and goes to this, goes to this. And so I made it out into pictures that I laminated, and so my kids had to like put it together. So I had it all in, little envelopes. I love to go through all that stuff. And they could pull it out. And after I taught it to them a few times, I put it all up and I said, now write it out. And they could remember how hard that was with the big words and stuff because they could see it in their minds and they knew it was going, because that's how I see things. I see
Yeah.
things in colors, I see things in patterns. And so when I did that with them a few times, I mean, my class aced photosynthesis where a lot of the other classes didn't do as well. And then, of course, because they aced that one, when we went into harder things having to do in chemistry, having to do with, well, when you get this molecule and this molecule, they were like, oh, that's like photosynthesis, right? Yeah. You remember all that? You
Yay!
remember
As
all
a science teacher,
yeah.
yay!
So that
I love the mention of those visual representations of thoughts, right? I think that is so important because we do see things differently and bigger pictures. Which kind of right now made me think as you were talking and about the child's brain and the adult brain is like I only have one brain, and in my brain I only want to have one house, and I want that house to only be 2 stories, right? I don't want a mansion in my brain because it's just too many pockets. And ADHD people have so much trouble compartmentalizing things. And I love that your story was about helping kids simplify the learning process while anchoring that very important information to help them retain it, to use later and to make connections in the future. I know I'm talking like teacher talk to you right now, right? But that is so important. That is so, so important. And I think that's also what made us good presenters and good teachers was that the way we perceive the world is not in black and white, and it's just in colors and sizes, even font sizes, right? If you write bigger, something that's more important, and the brighter the color, the more important it is. So I love that story. I love that that you just have that, Cat. It's an innate ability for you to help others learn. And I just really appreciate that story. That was really important. Really prompted a lot of memories of being a teacher and also being a student. And my ADHD brain was making all these connections as you're talking. So I love that. I love that. It was a little dopamine hit for me there.
we've covered a lot today. But
Yeah,
before
we
we
really
wrap up,
have.
yes. So let's answer some little questions
Yeah.
from that have come up in different places. So, what is your biggest aha from today's conversation? That we're going to ask people to put it down in the
Yes.
comments. We can do it ourselves too. What is your biggest aha, Melissa?
Gosh, that's so tough. Asking my ADHD brain to pick one thing. But in kind of looking at, we talked about RSD, we talked about time management, energy, we talked about the ADHD advantage, our superpowers, boundary setting, and how to kind of have sustainable systems. And I think what I've kind of been kind of that thought that keeps coming out, and that's why I had the house metaphor
Mhm.
because I have issues with building, having so many ideas in my head and then them not coming into fruition because it's just too much. I don't have enough brain space for that. So there's like a graveyard in the back of my head of like half-built uh ideas, half-built stories, half-built brilliance, right? And almost also like a Pinterest board. I have so many things that interest me. And I think just here, kind of as we're talking about it, that word of simplifying, compartmentalizing and simplifying, I think is it's not just one aha, but I think I do need to simplify my schedule at home, the schedule at work. You know how we lately we've been doing what are the 3 most important things? What are our 3 priority things? Because one thing I will tell you that right now, or just a few minutes ago, I had this realization that I've always loved beautiful to-do lists. I could go to Pinterest, I can go to Etsy, I can do so many, but they never served me. It was just like a capirotada of ideas. Like, if you don't know what capirotada is, it's a food it's that just has all kinds of stuff in it.
Cacophony.
Yeah, and
Cacophony is the fancy
there
word
you
for it.
go. And so that's kind of the way my brain has always been and how it's worked, and it doesn't serve me. So one challenge, it's more of less of an aha and more of a challenge that I'm going to give myself is simplify. Keep it simple. Because simple, the more simple things are, the easier I'll have at setting time for that rest and recovery. I think that is my biggest, if it's aha, is like slow down and keep it simple, right? Because we are building something great here. And we said it earlier, we're going to do it messy. It's a beautiful mess. And sometimes it's mostly mess, right? But it's still my beautiful mess and your beautiful mess. And it's going to be amazing as we get through, as we're helping. So my goal really is to have other women sit in this time of reflection. Just like you asked me right now, my aha, I'm like, wow, This is why I had my kids always reflect, metacognition, think about your thinking. So that to me, I think today was thinking about my thinking and thinking about my processes and wanting to simplify that to be more productive.
Love it.
Yeah.
The
What
two
about yours,
words,
Kat?
I'm sorry,
What about yours? What's your aha?
I have two words that are seeping into me a little bit deeper. And one is superpower. Instead of seeing myself and the way I think and the way my brain is and the way I am, instead of seeing it as a negative thing, to see it as a superpower. It's hard for me to think that way, but I'm glad that we're going to be working on it. Okay, so I'm not all the way there yet, but
Yeah,
I'm getting there. I'm seeing myself more positive light than I've ever seen in my life.
I
And
love
the other
that.
and the other thing is delegate. I do not delegate enough. I do not feel, well, especially when it costs money. Uh, I haven't been able to delegate a lot of times, but I need to delegate more and not feel guilty when things don't get done, when someone tells me they need to get done. It's like I'm doing as much as I can. So, for example, being older, my bones don't work as well as they used to work, kind of thing, but I'm working on it. I'm working on it so that I don't lose my muscle and I get healthier bones and stuff like that. Because as you age, post um, what is it, menopause, uh, the women's bodies change like crazy, and mine has
Love that.
changed. Mine has changed, and I'm feeling it. I'm seeing it in my body, but I still have so much to be thankful for
Yes.
because I always think about Jane Goodall. And she was 91 years old and she kept on going and she kept on staying positive. And so I'm just trying to stay with the hope that this can go on. So as far as the ahas go, it's you can do this. And what is our saying? Remember, your brain's not broken. It's
It's brilliant.
brilliant. Yeah.
It's brilliant. I love it. I love it. I love it.
So we haven't invited anyone to go below and check out our webinar and thing like that. Would you like to do that?
Not yet. If you guys can fix your eyes onto the information below, that gives you some details on our webinars, our upcoming webinars. And I know Kat talked about it earlier, but we will be having a 3-day event, a 3-day live virtual event packed with so much information, packed with content, coaching, just some amazing info where we're just going to be pouring into others and pouring into ourselves also because we love this work, and when you love the work then it's joyful. And so if and of course if you have any questions, guys, you can always just hit us up as well. Subscribe to our channel. Go ahead if you hear something that resonates with you. We're always open to also taking topics, right? That's something that we want to just let's pop out a topic. It's almost like a podcast, right? This live podcasting we're doing, we're taking topics. And today I really thought too that we really need to delve into executive functioning. I don't think enough women in general, right, much less ADHD women understand their brains and executive functioning and how the rest and recovery really helps with some of those skills that we need. So definitely, we'd love for you to join our community. We'd love to engage with you in our webinar and engage in our 3-day event as well.
We can have that as our topic for next week. Executive functioning. What do you think?
I love it. I think even as a teacher, surveying teachers and teachers who are teaching young adults and to learn, and teachers that are getting professional development as adult learners, didn't fully have a grasp of how their brain works and what these functions are, these skills that we can build that make us more productive and more successful in our personal lives and business lives. So I think that is a great topic. For next time.
Okay. So, everyone, if this conversation resonated with you, hit the subscribe button below. If you have anything to say to us, hit the comment down below. And we go live on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if something happens and we're not able to, we'll make up for it. But we're promising ourselves to make it Tuesdays and Thursdays, but understanding that if things come up, we're not going to kill ourselves about it. Okay. So, what's one final question, closing remark that we need to tell everybody?
I would say, well, what is some practical advice? Like, what's one thing? If we could just, like today, Kat, you and I, like, what's one piece of advice you could give to women entrepreneurs or just neurodivergent women, even just getting ready to get into an entrepreneurial mindset who might be feeling overwhelmed? What's just one piece of advice for
I think,
them?
and I think there are people out there that have an opinion about that. So we're going to invite you to put that one piece of advice right below, because we are not doctors, we are not therapists. We are people who were former teachers. I work. We will get into all the different businesses Melissa and I have worked with in the experiences that we have, but just to let you know, yes, we've come from the business world as well, and we have experience in that. But we know you out there have your own wisdom, and we loved listening to people with wisdom. I especially want to hear from people who are older as well, young people as well. But since I'm the elder person in our company here, I want to hear older people who are still going at it, who still want to think about starting a business, who want to focus in their superpowers and want to join us. So if you have any comments and wisdom you want to share with us, please do so. We are not the end all be all for any of this kind of stuff. So we invite you to become a part of the community and help us with your wisdom, with your comments, with anything else that you can share to help other people. Go for it, right?
And if you don't have any advice for anyone that you want to share, feel free to share something about who you are. If you want to introduce yourself to everyone in this community, tell us where you're from, what you do, or maybe one of the topics that really resonated with you today. Because what we're trying to do, again, Kat said, we're building community, and we're hoping that you join us. And once we get to see you, once we get to know your names, then we really will have a very strong, supportive network and community. So thank you for being here with us live today. And also for those of you that will be listening to the replays, because of course you have lives and stuff, and we know that you may not be able to come and be with us presently in the moment, but watching replays, you're still able to engage with us, and we will be checking the comments, some of the questions, and of course the advice that you have. For those of you that do share advice, we would love to pay it forward and share that advice during our next live as well. So again, thank you for being here. And remember, your
Your
brain isn't
brain isn't
broken.
broken. It's brilliant.
Brilliant. We will
Thank you all.
definitely see you all soon. I hope that something here is resonating with you all, and that um, you do become part of this very amazing community that we have here. And thank you, Kat. Thank you today
Thank you.
for your authenticity and your vulnerability and the beautiful stories. You are a storyteller. I love hearing your stories. They're just amazing. So thank you for joining me on this awesome journey towards self-discovery and helping other women like us just have a better space in the world. And I really appreciate it.